Alright, we got another YAP session from me today. So, Quinn the GM a couple months ago made a video called what characters might be holding up A Song of Ice and Fire or holding up, The Winds of Winter, because it's been, 15 years since The Winds of Winter. It's like, Skyrim now. We got like a trailer and we're getting nothing more. But yeah, the question is what characters or plot lines could be holding up The Winds of Winter now. I'm going to be honest, we don't really know the exact answer, obviously, but we do know that George R. R. Martin has confirmed in the past that he finds himself in these things called the Mirror-Neast Knot. Stuff that he is just super entangled with. Not like entanglement like, Will Smith and his wife. More like entanglement that like, he's just very stuck. And the way he gets out of it is by totally something new. And that's when we get Sir Barristan as a POV and stuff. So it's very possible that we have another character or not or something in The Winds of Winter that is holding up this book. And it's been, very, very long time since we had A Song of Ice and Fire book. Now, in my opinion, there's basically like three main characters. I watched his video. I read the books and watched other people's videos on this and just really try to see why people are saying is this character, why people are saying is that character. And the main ones that I can come up with by myself, just like reading the book and being like, yeah, this character is probably going to be the one that will give George R. R. the most amount of trouble, is these three characters, or at least these types of styles of characters. So it's Daenerys, Jon Snow, and the Varys, Peter Baelish type of character. So like not like just Varys and Peter Baelish, but this like, Machiavellian like character who is supposed to have like know where all the chess pieces on the board are. They know they're the ones controlling the game. They're the ones who are really, they're only two players of the game, and the other ones are just like pawns and stuff. Those types of characters. So I guess you can throw in like Illyrio Malpatis in there as well. There are other characters I'll talk about in this video, but like those are like the big three types in my opinion. But I just want to get a few characters out of the way that I think are definitely not the ones that are holding this book back. The main one is Tyrion, the GOAT. He's my favorite character. He's George's favorite character. And Tyrion's chapters, we know they are completely finished. George himself has confirmed that Tyrion chapters are all done. Bang. He 100% completed them. He got all the achievements. He got the PlayStation Award. He got everything for the Tyrion chapters. Which I guess you could say is surprising, but like, it's not really. Tyrion has been the easiest character for George to write for at least the first three books. But I guess A Dance with Dragons, he did say Tyrion was pretty hard to write in that one, and you could argue that Tyrion did have a bit too many chapters in A Dance with Dragons. And Tyrion chapters from George, like you can tell that he really, really loves those chapters. Like he goes 110% with Tyrion chapters when he only goes 100% with the other chapters, And then there's Bran chapters where he only goes like 10%. But let's start off with the first one. Varys, Peter Baelish type of characters, Illyrio Malpatis. I think these characters might actually be the hardest for George to complete, because it's been like what, 4 or 5 books now, and we are still getting the kind of like, oh, these guys, they're working on something. They're working on something. You gotta trust me. They're coming out. They're about to execute and do some game-breaking changes, and they still haven't done that super genius execution on their plans. We do know Varys' plans, obviously, with Young Griff, if you believe Young Griff is a Blackfire and all that. So we do know some stuff. I'm not saying they didn't do anything, but these are characters that are like supposed to be so smart that he may have actually made the characters smarter than himself. Like Varys and Peter Baelish may actually be smarter than George R. R. Martin, to the point where George is like, yo, I have no idea. I'm not like a political gamer. I have no idea how I'm supposed to execute on this the way I intended. Like these characters gotta do something big. And Varys, we kind of know where he's going with the Young Griff. But with Peter Baelish, he is like a full-on Machiavellian character. He knows where every single piece is. And I imagine George does know exactly where he wants to go with Peter Baelish, or at least the execution and his death and stuff. Because Peter Baelish has been here since like, book 1. He's not like a new character or anything. And George has said in the past that he does know the endings of the main characters and like the major characters, but he doesn't know about the side characters. Peter Baelish has been here since like book 1. He is a OG GOAT. He's an OG Fortnite player. He knows where everything is. He definitely knows where Peter Baelish's story is going to end up, but he needs to absolutely nail the execution, because you can't just like kill Peter Baelish off right now, because that's what happened in the TV show. Peter Baelish, he made like a little bit of a mistake and bam, he's over, game over. It's not really how it's gonna happen here. Peter Baelish will probably end up not executing on his plan flawlessly. Like he might have like 10 plans, 9 of them he executes it flawlessly, but there's that one plan where he left Sansa open and she was like the leak and she screws up everything. So I do think Peter Baelish is one of those characters that might be holding him back a little, because he does need to really like perfect that genius level of Peter Baelish. And if he doesn't do that, then that means the first 5 books where Peter Baelish was supposed to have this, smart aura. When they're rereading the books, they'd be like, oh, he was just kind of a dumb guy. That's kind of what we have with like Tyrion, Tyrion, as the books go along and we go deeper and deeper into the story, we kind of realize, oh, Tyrion at the start of the books wasn't actually as smart as we thought he was. He was just kind of smarter than characters like Ned and Daenerys and Jon. But overall, Tyrion was just getting clapped by the Game of Thrones. But we just thought he wasn't. And that's kind of the point of the franchise. Like the Game of Thrones keep getting deeper and deeper. First you think it's Ned Stark. Oh, Ned Stark will do just fine in King's Landing. No. Tyrion will do just fine in King's Landing. No. Tywin, no, he'll surely do Tywin. Then no, he dies too. And now Cersei, she's gonna die too. The Game of Thrones are just getting higher and higher and higher. The skill level is getting harder and harder. It's like expert difficulty now. And Peter Baelish needs to be fully on his game. So I do think Peter Baelish and characters like Varys and Illyrio may be holding it back a lot. But I don't think Varys and Illyrio are like guaranteed. I do think Peter Baelish is definitely the much harder one. The second character I want to talk about is Daenerys. Now there's no doubt, like George is not dumb. Like he has seen the backlash from, season 8 of Game of Thrones. He knows that like a lot of people didn't like Daenerys going mad and everything. And I hate it too. I think it was really, really dumb. And Daenerys is definitely not gonna go mad in the books. Like I made a few videos on that. But George has confirmed that she will embrace her Targaryen side, and he has hinted on, I think it was like LinkedIn forums or something, I don't even know what that app is, that Daenerys will have a very, very dark turn. And that's kind of what The Winds of Winter is. The Winds of Winter will be a very, very dark book. Over the past like 5 books, like they have been dark at times, but they are mainly from the victim's perspective besides Tyrion. Tyrion is the only character that is like protagonist who is straight up like evil. The other characters are having bad things done to them, like, Theon and Daenerys and Arya and Sansa. They're more like the victims of evil. Tyrion is the only one who's like, I don't care, I'm just gonna cook this motherfucker and threaten to rape Tommen. No care in the world, right? 8-year-old boy, whatever. No craps given. So yeah, The Winds of Winter is going to be like the darkest book. And Daenerys is next up in line. She is next up in line to have a very, very dark turn. I think Jon is with her. Jon is going to have that just pure dark energy in this next book if he does come back. And it does make sense with Jon and Daenerys basically having the exact same story, but one's in the north, one's in this like summer African paradise. And Daenerys has a lot to do in this next coming books, maybe the next 2 books really. And it's really hard to see that, it's really hard to understand how George wants the story to be completed in 2 books, because Daenerys has a lot to do. She has to do the whole Dothraki Sea stuff, then she has to do the Battle of Fire, then she has to meet Tyrion, then she has to like understand Tyrion and be like, yeah, I'll let you on my side. And then she has to do young Griff, not do young Griff like sexually, but like figure out what's gonna happen with young Griff. Then Jon Snow, then Jon Snow being a Targaryen, then the White Walkers. What are the White Walkers? Should we kill the White Walkers? Then she's going to have people saying, no, we should kill the dragons because they're the ones who killed the White Walkers. Because if she kills the White Walkers and the White Walkers are supposed to be this giant evil, then it's one of those things where like if Daenerys kills the giant unstoppable evil, then the dragons are the new giant unstoppable evil. So Daenerys just has so much to do in these next 2 books. I can definitely see George is being like, yo, this is so much I have to do with Daenerys. So I can definitely see Daenerys being one of the characters that are really, really holding George back. If I had to guess, I wouldn't say it's her directly, just because Tyrion chapters are done, and George has, I think he indirectly confirmed that Tyrion and Daenerys will meet each other in this book, but they will meet each other very, very, very late in the book. Someone fact check me on that. But yeah, if he's done the Tyrion chapters, he just has to mirror Tyrion chapters with Daenerys chapters, and hopefully he's on that. But overall, Daenerys has so much to do in these next 2 books. Like, she is a main event character. That's why she was like barely doing anything in the Clash of Kings. But the next character I think probably is holding back the book is Jon Snow. Actually, probably might be a little bit too strong. Now, Jon Snow is clear that he is like one of the, protagonists. He's arguably the protagonist of the book. I still think he's kind of Tyrion, but George has said that the core of the story are the Starks. Jon is a Stark, even if he's Lyanna Stark's son. And Jon Snow does have this very, Frodo type of energy going on, or more like Eren Yeager. And it's very obvious that George, he knows exactly where to go with Jon. But I think the thing that a lot of people, I just kind of want to throw this in there. A lot of people think that when Jon returns, he might now return as a POV character, because that's kind of what makes characters like Stannis really, really cool. Like Stannis, Tywin, Peter Baelish, Varys. These characters are so much cooler because we don't hear what's happening in their head. Like, we don't hear Tywin, sitting on the toilet being like, oh, I just took a massive shit. I can't wait to go back in bed and fuck shit. Oh, this is so embarrassing. She probably smells it from here. Oh shit, is that my dwarf son trying to kill me? Goddamn. Like, we don't hear the thoughts of those people, and that's what makes them so much better than a lot of these characters that we do hear their POV thoughts and everything. We don't have that for Jon, but I do think there is a possible world out there, and I really hope this is not true, that George might be writing Jon's story from Jon's POV and rewriting the exact same story from another person's point of view. You might call this crazy, but George has done this in the past. He has rewritten 3 different stories with the Martells and the dragons and Daenerys' wedding and everything. He said that when he was writing that section of the book, he wrote it 3 times. One before Daenerys comes back or something, one after Daenerys comes back, one during Daenerys is already there. It's like he wrote the entire thing 3 different times. And he just went with the one that he thought was the best. And that's one of the reasons why Dance with Dragons took so long. He could be doing that with Jon Snow. He could be writing that entire goddamn story from Jon Snow's perspective, and another time from Melisandre's perspective or Davos's perspective. And the last thing I want to say, and by the way, like, I don't think this is like an absolute guarantee. I'm trying to see, like, you know, push these theories out there and see if any of them land when the book does come out. Because George R. R. Martin, he is pretty open after the book comes out. But the main thing I think is, like, it has less to do with the actual characters and more to do with the actual main event. Like, we are in the main event now, and the last book that George written that was kind of the main event material was A Storm of Swords. There was so much that happened in A Storm of Swords. There was like Oberyn's death, the Red Wedding, Jaime fighting the bear, Brienne's arc with Jaime, Tyrion killing Shae, Tyrion killing Tywin, Jon Snow Watchers on the Wall, Daenerys with all those guys, Bran thugging it out, Samwell thugging it out. There was a lot that happened in A Storm of Swords. That's the last book that George has written that was very, like, main event material. And that was a long time ago. And George has said that he is kind of scared to write some of the main event stuff, and he saves it for later on. So when he wrote the Red Wedding, he skipped the Red Wedding. And he finished all the other parts. I think he finished like Tyrion and Tywin and all that. And then he went back and then wrote the Red Wedding and then published the book.
BT Fabian 1 asks, I'm just curious. Several authors I read have discussed how hard it is to sometimes kill off certain characters, which clearly is not an issue here. You've certainly killed plenty off in your career, both in and out of A Song of Ice and Fire. Which character was the toughest to kill off?
Well, I won't mention any character names, but the Red Wedding was the hardest thing I ever wrote. And those who have read the books know what I'm referring to. That chapter occurs about 2/3 of the way through Storm of Swords, but it was actually the last thing I wrote for that book. When I reached that chapter, I couldn't write it. I skipped over it. I wrote all the aftermath and, you know, the other things. I wrote The Other Wedding, in which someone also dies. That one was easy and fun to write. Because, you know, everybody wanted to see that little shit die.
So, like, we are in the main event now. Like, there's so much that has to go on with, like, Jon Snow Resurrection, Jon Snow Ramsay maybe, Rickon, Jon Snow finding out he's a Targaryen, Jon Snow meeting Daenerys, Jon Snow going up against the White Walkers, then maybe having a redemption arc or whatever. And that's just one character. You include Tyrion on that, you include Daenerys on that, you include Arya on that, Sansa on that. There's so many colliding dynamics that George has to sprint through. So I do think overall it has more to do with that we are in the main event and George cannot screw this up. Because the Game of Thrones TV show, they screwed up, and it's impossible. Like, you watch those first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, you're like, there's no way anyone can screw this up. All you have to do is give us a little bit of a, you know, depth to these characters for the ending, and the ending will be great. But they skipped out on the depth, and they somehow ruined the entire last 2 seasons, maybe 2 to 4 seasons. But yeah, that's my thoughts on what characters and what plots might be holding The Winds of Winter back. Again, we are like, what, 15 years late on this book, so this is the best we can do with this content. And yeah, that's it for today's video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and yeah, peace out.